Hey folks, so I've had my X-E5 for a few months. What's it made of? So let's go over the specifications and performance of the camera first. I'm not going to go into sort of great detail because I just want to get you a feel for the camera, what it's like, and I'm going to link you to some of the other videos I've done because things like, for example, the autofocus performance is very similar, if not the same, to cameras like the X-T5, XS20 because it's got the X processor 5, which all the 5th generation cameras have. Some just have the X-Trans processor 4 and some have the X-Trans processor 5. So this has got the same 40 megapixel sensor that the X-T5 has. Now it does come with a nice, I've added a peak design strap to this one, but it does come with a nice posh strap that's just a normal camera shoulder strap, so a bit of a hipster strap that it comes with in the box. No charger, and as I say, I'll link my unboxing video so you can see what you get. You do get a paper manual with it, a proper manual, but most of these days are PDF. And as I've alluded to before, the autofocus performance is pretty much the same as the X-T5 and other X series cameras. The only caveat is something was introduced with the XM5, I think the X-T50, and some of the newer cameras, was that in zone autofocus you can have 2 custom box sizes instead of just having square boxes, what you would normally have on the older cameras. They haven't received this update yet. This camera, you can have like a thin box, or a rectangle instead of just square, which is quite handy actually for certain shots. I'd like to see that come to the other cameras. In manual focus mode, you do get one extra neat feature that the XM5 gets as well, and I think the X-T50 as well gets it, which is colour maps. And colour maps for manual focusing is a way of having a colour map showing you what is in focus on the camera, and then having a different colour to show things behind the camera, and then again a different colour again to see what's in front of the camera. It's not a particularly advanced colour map, it's more of a novelty than a sort of advanced feature you see on sort of high-end cameras, but at least it's another way of controlling the manual focus. Other than that, it pretty much matches what the X-T5 has. And I just thought I'd very quickly cover the 23mm kit lens. I need to do a separate review of this because it deserves a review in its own right, but it's well made, it's weather sealed, has an aperture ring, and it's nice and sharp, and it makes the camera have a lovely feel like the X100V. And this is one of the plus sides of this camera. We're going to move on to the good points of this camera. And one of the good points about this camera and this lens is that when you pair the 23mm f2.8 with the X-E5, it really feels like an X100V. But it has the advantage of having that interchangeable lens function that the X100 system doesn't have. So what have we got? Well, as I say, we've actually got some of the controls off the X100V. You've got the little front dial and front button here, which you can assign a number of functions to. You can pull it hard or slightly, and you can assign a function 2 ways. It goes either way. It's supposed to be for the digital teleconverter, but you can assign it to anything you want pretty much. And I think that's a good thing because it gives this camera, at first thought you'd think it was lacking custom buttons. It's only one down on the X-T5 really for custom buttons because of this front lever that it's got on. And I've really got no complaints about the number of buttons on the camera. You know, you've got 1 on the top, and you've got 3 on the back you can customize. The dials on the front and the back are also push, the same as the X-E5, which some cameras like the XS20 don't get a push dial, that's it. So you've got dual functions on the dials, you can switch it to ISO and things like that by pushing through and cycling through the options. So very versatile on the buttons. One of the new dials is well, it's not new, it came on the XM5 and the X-T50, but it was very badly implemented. It was ugly, nobody liked it. This iteration, it's got a little glass window on the top. The dial, little glass window, and you've got proper custom recipes where you can save a full recipe independent of the profile you're in, and you just turn it to that dial and it'll fire off that film simulation with grain, color chrome effect, anything you want. And it looks like a little window. You know, if you have a film camera and you have the window of the film number, they've made it look like that, and I think it works really well. It's still done to a bit of a budget. I would love to have seen something like the X100V has, for ISO included, at the premium price point this camera is. But we can't have everything, and we'll come on to some of the negatives of the camera shortly. Build quality wise, I would say I've owned an X-T5, although I sold it to get this camera, because I've recently moved to an X-H2S, which is much better all round, and I got one for a bargain of a price. If you check my videos out, you'll see I've done a full review of that camera as well, so you can watch that if you wish. I'll try and remember to link that in the description. So it's got this really good build quality. It feels a little bit better built than the X-T5, despite lacking weather resistance. More on that later. And we've got this little viewfinder here, which is only 2.4 million dot. It's a little small, but the relief and the eye relief is in some respects not great, but its compact nature fits the style of the camera and it's perfectly usable. And I found it really handy to have over the XM5, which lacks this feature. And one of the lovely things I like about it, and I think this is actually, dare I say it, and you can discuss this in the comments below, because this is a controversial topic. It has a retro viewfinder mode that looks like an old style camera, and it works really well. It takes just puts the digits of the shutter speed, the ISO in a sort of LED old-fashioned red look, and the aperture, and that's it. And you've got like a lever on this side which does the exposure. It's just an old-fashioned exposure meter like they used to have on old-fashioned film cameras, and I use that a lot. I love that mode because it's so easy on my eyes, because I wear glasses, and bright white sort of light inside the viewfinder can blur around the edges for me, but this retro mode is spot on for that, so I don't have to wear glasses for the viewfinder. And I think people who've used the X100V will have the hybrid viewfinder, which is an optical viewfinder. And you know, one of the reasons I got the X100V a long time ago was because I wanted that optical viewfinder. I'd not long been off DSLRs and having optical. I thought, oh, I could really like to have an optical viewfinder. And you know what? I hardly ever used it. It was wonderful to have, and it looked good, but it was just the least used feature of the X100V series. And I think I would rather have, if I was going to do an X107, I'd rather took away the optical viewfinder. But you tell me what you think in the comments. But you've seen what it looks like, the retro viewfinder on this. I think it's just a really good implementation, and I think it works far better than the other viewfinder, the optical viewfinder, the X100 system. I like the fact that we've got the 8 megabits per second video mode that comes over from the XM5. That's really good to have, because at a pinch, if you are filming for socials or want a quick upload to the internet, and you're just going to do it in the Turner straight out of camera. I mean, I'm recording this in F-Log-C, but if you wanted to do this straight out of the camera, you have that opportunity to have something that's easy to edit, and which is what it's designed to be, and remarkably good quality. I mean, you wouldn't realise once it's on Facebook that it is only that bitrate. Perfectly usable, and it's a shame that other implementations in the video that we'll come on to in the bad points are lacking in some areas. And lastly, we've got F-Log2, although we only have a micro HDMI port if you wanted to record with an external recorder. But you do at least have F-Log2, which is Fuji have been quite generous in what they include in all of their cameras. Even the XM5 now has F-Log2, but you don't get F-Log-C. But I wouldn't expect that because only high-end cameras are going to get that. So I think that covers pretty much the good points about the camera. Only other things that really are worth a mention is you've got a nice diopter dial which is recessed, a physical manual autofocus, single point autofocus button, a nice single flap on this side of the camera where all the ports are, so everything's on one side, and a lovely little grip that I find works really well. I find the camera incredibly comfortable to hold and very ergonomic, works very well with the Peak Design straps, which I prefer to having a strap around my neck. I much prefer wrist straps than that, because the camera with the 23mm on is super pocketable. Now, there are some negatives with the camera, and I don't think these are these are sort of going to stop you necessarily buying it, but the things you're going to have to consider depending on your usage for the camera. So the biggest miss really of this camera is that it's not weather sealed, which is ironic because it comes with a weather sealed lens, and means you can't use it in rain unless you've got a cover or you're very careful. So, and as this camera is going to be probably used as a very popular travel camera, it was a surprise at the price point it's at. It's not far below the X100 V series cameras, or VI should I say, and it's not far below the X-E5, which are weather sealed. And of course it only has a single card slot. It is UHS 2 though. Having said that, how many people at this price point need a second card slot? And you don't really need more than UHS 2, so it's perfectly adequate, and it goes inside the same place the battery goes. Now the batteries are, of course, the NPW126 batteries. Now I use these K&F Concept aftermarket ones. It's up to you if you choose to use aftermarket. A lot of people don't like to. I got these because they're USB rechargeable, so I can recharge them in my backpack while I'm swapping them out, and that's why I use them, so that the battery life isn't so much of a problem. Having said that, you can get 200 to 300 shots from the camera, although if you're using film simulations with clarity and different settings, you might get far fewer shots because they're going to drain the battery more quickly. So your mileage may vary on that, but be mindful that you need to buy a couple of spare batteries, because it's not like the battery in the X-T5, which is I think the W235, which is substantially better, especially in the XS20, which also has that battery. Now, oddly, they've put in the 8 megabits video bitrate, but they haven't put in the vertical video mode that I can see, or frame guides, which Fuji are missing on a lot of their cameras, which would be nice, because I think that this camera will be used by creators who don't want an XM5 and want a more photocentric camera. I'm surprised they didn't give them these extra sort of frame guides at the very least, or different video modes. I understand that it's a photocentric camera, but I strongly suspect that people are going to use it for photos and video, and it is a very good video camera. It does lack 6K open gate, as the X-T5 doesn't have that either. But it does have 6K in 16:9. And it does have the high quality 4K, and it'll do right up to, I think it'll do 1080 240, and it'll do 4K 60. So it's very similar in video capability to the X-T5, which it's kind of meant to be a poor man's X-T5, if you like, in some respects. A more compact X-T5. I certainly having used the X-E5, I certainly find it much more ergonomic and pocket friendly and bike friendly and what have you, or when I'm travelling, than the X-E5 ever was. It's a joy to use in that respect. Lastly, the viewfinder and the screen are quite low resolution. Now, I touched on before, the viewfinder is 2.4 million pixels, which is quite low resolution. Million pixels is a bit of a misnomer. You've kind of 2.4 million pixel screen sounds much lower res than a 3.6 million pixel screen, but there isn't actually that much difference between them when you actually do the calculations. So it's the size of the viewfinder that matters rather than the resolution in this case, and it's obviously a lot smaller than a viewfinder on the X100, which has a big viewfinder. X100 series, X106 has a decent viewfinder, X-E5 does, but all of their cameras in this prosumer range, X-T50, XS20, they all have a smaller 2.4 million viewfinder. It's physically smaller, physically lower resolution. And the screen is only 1 million dots resolution. And again, it sounds super low, and I was disappointed when the camera was set for launch, and this is the spec that came with. Same with the XM5, which is video focused, it's quite low resolution. You've got the XS20, which is 1.7. You've got the X-H2S that I've got here, which is 1.6 million dots. So they're all substantially high. But again, when you actually work out the physical dimensions of pixels that way, it's not a huge difference. And in practice, it's nice and bright during the day, and it works really well. Lastly, the flip-up mechanism, I forgot to mention this in the good actually. It can be good and bad. I would love a flip-out screen, and it does. We'll show you flipping it up here. It's a little bit awkward to do, but you can see the mechanism. It works better than the X-E4. And of course, you can just clip your microphone on here, on the side. So in a pinch, it sort of sits a bit better than the older camera, and it's a little bit better to push out. So that's why I'm saying that video focused people will probably want to use this camera because it can vlog. It can absolutely vlog. And in fact, the position of the onboard microphone, although it's not as advanced as the XM5, you can get like a little wind muff cover for it, which sits on top of the hot shoe, and I use that on my XM5 if I'm not using a built-in mic. And it actually fits this camera as well. It'll cover the little microphone, so it'll give you a little bit of wind protection. Again, I've already done a review on that for the XM5, a little short on that. I'll try and link all of these videos in the description so you can go and look at autofocus performance and things like that we've talked about, because there's not really any much point in going over what the autofocus is going to be like until I do the review of that particular lens, because this lens has got its own unique characteristics for that. But the camera itself, if you put the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8 on this camera, it'll perform similar to an X-T5 or an X-T50, because they're similar cameras with the same sensor, same processor. Intrinsically, they're the same inside. The only differences you get is that the X-E5 has a mechanical shutter, maximum mechanical shutter of 1/8000th of a second, for example, and can do 15 frames a second mechanical. This camera can only do 1/4000th of a second on the maximum mechanical shutter, and can only do 8 frames a second. But for most people, that's adequate. I've done big pictures of birds with this and had no issues with it. And of course, lastly, the camera has IBIS. So let's finish summing up, because I've already started the summing up there. You do have IBIS, which the XM5 doesn't. Who's the camera for? Me. Now, I got the camera because I didn't want the bulk of the X-T5, and I also wanted something that was better at video, so I got an X-H2S. I've got the XM5, which is because it's just tiny and I can put it in a pocket, and it's smaller than this. And if I want something that's like robust and doesn't have IBIS, that I want to go somewhere where it might be quite rugged, I might take that instead. But that's the only reason I got that particular camera, and that one's video focused, lacks a viewfinder. This has a viewfinder. So you've got a viewfinder, you've got a flip up screen, you've got something that's got the best of the XM5 with some compromises, and it's got bits of the X-T5 with some compromises. Like, for example, we lack an ISO dial on the X-E5, which would have been nice. But you can, with the extra buttons on the front of the back, the dials, you've got plenty of dials to assign that ISO function to that. And how often do we use the ISO dial? Well, we probably do on the X-T5. I used it quite a bit. It was very handy in a pinch to go, right, I want to quickly set the camera to ISO 1600 and I don't want to delve into the menus or twiddle a dial. And that's the handy thing of the dial. So it would have been nice if they'd put an ISO dial on it, but it wasn't to be. So if you want to travel, you're not looking to spend quite as much as you want on an X-T5. You don't want the complexities of a more advanced camera. You do want to record yourself. You want to do a little bit of video, but you're mainly going to do photographs. But you know that the camera has to be video capable. Then I would say probably the X-E5 is for you. If you want something that was more video focused, you're probably going to be looking at something like an XS20. If you want something that's ultra light and video focused, XM5. And if you want dual card slots and the weather resistance, then you're going to have to go for the X-T5. It's sort of a no-brainer. But this is a perfect little street photography camera, wandering around with a little 23mm lens on. It's super compact. And I think that's the kind of people it's sort of going to appeal to, the people who actually just want to use it with a 23mm lens. They may grow into it and put other lenses on. Equally, they may just keep the 23mm lens and just happily use it like an X100V. It suits different people, and it's capable of doing all manner of different genres, but it's not like a wildlife camera. But it's definitely a street camera, and it could do portraits in a pinch. And it certainly can do landscapes, and it's got a flip-up screen for composing low shots. So absolutely, little travel camera, little everyday camera that you want to carry around with you, little street photography camera, definitely for that. If you want to be a bit more specialist in video or wildlife photography, you might need to go for something a bit more specific. And that's what I'd say it's for. That's what I was kind of joking, saying it's for me, it's for everyone. It's an everyone camera, and it does well. And what it does is take good quality pictures with features that everyone can enjoy, like the film simulation dials, or raw format pictures if that's what you prefer to do. Some people like just JPEGs and that's it. Other people like to faff around and edit and pick with pictures. So there you go, folks. I hope you got value from this video. Please do watch the videos I've linked below because they'll give you more context on the other areas we've talked about. And remember to drop a like and subscribe if you did get value from the video and want to get alerted for further videos. Click the bell for notifications. See you all later. Bye.